Welcome to Let's Curate's webcast series. We're so thrilled to be presenting an amazing lineup of creators at this year's Art Expo exhibition in New York City. One of the most sought after international events in the art world, this one attracts over 200 galleries, artists, and publishers showcasing exciting artwork, ceramics, sculptures, and much more. Today, I'm speaking to Sinead Mcinerney, an Irish maker specializing in unique metal sculptures. We will be sharing links to her work for Art Expo, and these would also be available on our website at letscurate.com. Hi, good afternoon, Sinead. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Meghna. Lovely to see you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure entirely. We always like to begin with doing a bit of a deep dive into how it all began. I know every maker has his or her own journey, and that's part of the magic that seeps into your work. Can you take us a little bit through your background and how you fell in love with the whole concept of sculptures?
Yeah, I think I always knew I wanted to be an artist from a very young age, and I was very lucky at school. My art teacher was into ceramics, and so we did an awful lot of clay work, a lot of 3D work, and that's when I fell in love with the concept of making 3D work. And I was lucky enough to get accepted to art college, and while I was there, I had, first year you kind of do a bit of everything, and I got to spend some time in the metalwork department, and I just fell in love with it. And I think there was something like watching the metal glow, as it's being soldered. I thought, oh wow, I really wanted to know more about it. And I kind of felt the way I was working, I love detail. And I love building up my work with layers and layers of detail. And I found with metal, it was easier to do that for me than clay. So then during my time at art college, I got the opportunity, just through the work I was doing, somebody suggested that I go to the hangars in Dublin Airport. His father worked there. And it just changed everything for me. I was just blown away by what I saw, because we were like in the hangars and seeing all these planes stripped back to nothing because they're being repaired, and you get to walk around them and seeing them like you'd never seen them before, and being up close and seeing them from all different angles. I just fell in love, and I sensed like a vulnerability about them and a kind of a character that I really felt, oh, I want to do something with this. And even the engines, the jet engines, they just seem so beautiful to me. And I left there and I just felt completely inspired in a new direction. But I wanted to kind of make kind of pieces that were not just an ode to them, but also characters within themselves, So that's kind of where that whole direction started from. So I continued down that line for a few years, finished art college, and I was in group studios. And then I took a break. I kind of started and I was doing working full time, and I just let it slide for quite a number of years. And it's only recently that I'm back doing it. I had a difficult few years. I'd lost both parents and my brother, and so I kind of didn't feel like creating then. But after the death of my father, just something changed. I felt I really, really needed to get back doing what was important to me and what my passion is, because it never really leaves you. Even all those times when I was working full time, it was always there that I wanted to be creating. So I just went for it then, and I'm just loving being back doing it, and really grateful to be back doing it and to have that opportunity.
That's incredible. It's amazing how unexpected the sources of inspiration are. And that's what's fascinating, because I feel something that speaks to you may not speak to someone else, but when it speaks to you, it opens up something which can just lead to an absolutely different life. Said, you tried doing something else, and then it kept calling you, and you came back to it. And I feel that's why it's so artists and people who work with ceramics, or people who make things. It is a very brave path, because you literally don't know. There is no path is the same for anyone.
No.
It's not like the medical field or, other professions where there is a set path. You need to do certain things to get to a certain point. But with makers, I feel it's you every step of the way. And you decide when to stop, you decide when to start. But it's incredible how it doesn't leave you. I'm curious to know, like we're talking about inspirations. I'm a city person and cities inspire me. I get a lot of energy from cities and it just unlocks my creative mind. Have there been any particular idols or heroes that kind of, you look at them or you look at their work and you say, something about this makes me want to kind of, do this in my line of work?
Well, I'd say definitely Leonardo da Vinci's, his early drawings. They just always spoke to me. And when I was in Florence a couple of years ago, I got to go to the Leonardo Interactive Museum, and they have built his designs. They brought them to life, and it's just incredible seeing his ingenuity from way back then. He was so ahead of his time. And I just really feel like, I don't know, I always felt really drawn and connected to them. Because there's just an element of, pushing boundaries and kind of being brave. And I mean, I'm sure there were people around him who thought he was mad. And he just, he really, really had such an incredible brain. So he would be one. And I do feel particularly the piece that we'll be talking about in a minute is very much inspired by him. And then I've always loved the American sculptor Alexander Calder. I just love his huge kinetic sculptures. How they almost look precarious, how they're balanced and the way the air currents move them. And that's another element I like to I've tried in some of my pieces incorporating it. Just that idea of something not looking like it should stay, like it could just topple over at a moment, or also kind of drawing you in and allowing you, you just want to touch it and making it sort of interactive with the viewer. I really like that idea. And then recently, I'm reading a book, The Great Women Artists, or The Story of Art Without Men by Katie Hessel, and it really has got me thinking about how women haven't been recognized through art history. So it's really something I'm thinking, gosh, yeah, even for my own self, here I am listing two men. And there were some great surrealist painters and sculptors from them, that Lee Miller and Merit Oppenheim. And I think, gosh, yeah, how are we not speaking about these? There is so many women that were doing incredible work alongside men, but they're just not getting, they never got heard or seen, I suppose. So yeah, there's so much inspiration out there.
I know,
really.
It's almost, I'm sure when you start on a collection or you start thinking of an idea and the grades are playing in your mind, and then for you to come up with your own thing, that's pretty challenging too, because you need to, they were so overwhelming in their mastery that I've heard a lot of creators say it's almost scary because you do not want to emulate them. You want to be inspired, but you don't want to copy them because it's so distinct. Exactly. In a minute you would be caught if you try to do anything that was somewhat similar, and I think that's genius. That's genius on their part, that even after so many years, you look at a stroke, you look at a particular shape, and you think of that one person who kickstarted it all. So that's pretty incredible. You did mention that you took us through why that amazing moment when you were inspired to kind of get into metal. Have you dabbled with other kinds of materials but kind of always come back to metal? Is there any other are there any other media that you've tried, but then this is why I want to stick?
Clay I would have tried quite a lot. I always loved working in clay, but I always end up coming back to metal because it's the detail. And that nothing excites me more than when I'm melting solder. I just love when it glows. It never gets old for me. And there are days when it doesn't melt, and it makes the days when it does even better. There are some days I'm there with my torch on it. For some reason, it just won't work, but I just love it. And you know, when I took a long break, you know, it was initially kind of daunting coming back to it, you know, and using the torch again. But yeah, once you get over the initial, it was really, you know, I knew, oh, here I'm meant to.
That's incredible. Please tell us, I'm so excited to introduce your piece to our viewers today. This is a very special sculpture, metal sculpture, of course, like you mentioned, because that's your line of work, for Art Expo New York City. Tell us everything, Sinead. You know, I'm like so thrilled to listen to what you're going to say next.
Well, like I said before, this one was very much inspired by Leonardo da Vinci's early drawings of his flying machines, and also the painting The Elephants by Dali. I don't know if you can see too clearly. That was kind of where I took my inspiration from. And I just wanted to create something that was a real celebration of flight, a real kind of ode to the people pushing boundaries, you know, thinking about how, you know, what a great feat flying is, and back then how inconceivable it was, and sort of the imagination it would have taken to kind of come up with, how will we get there? What will it look like? You know, I just love that kind of idea of brainstorming different ways we can go up in the clouds. So that's kind of where the kind of overall shape came from. And then, like I was saying about detail, I built up a lot of different detail on the wings. On the wing, sort of I use kind of, there's an old metalwork technique called granulation, which is these little balls that you create from melting down the silver. And then so it's all little tiny details. So for the color then, I used a process called patination, which is where you naturally speed up the weathering of the copper to create the blue kind of green tones. So you can use various methods, but I used a homemade one with just using salt and vinegar, and you put it in the container with ammonia, which will speed up the evaporation, and then you're left with these nice blue tones. And you can see the texture then from some of the salt. I purposely applied it a bit heavier so that it would create a bit of texture as well as colour, and that stays on. I seal it then with a wax to keep it there. So yeah, it's just a nice mixture of colour and form, which to me was, you know, very much based upon celebration and, you know, times gone by. And I think for me, flying has kind of become quite something we take for granted, and, you know, we do it every day, and I think we forget about how wondrous it is sometimes, you know. It you know, what people achieved and what has been achieved by man in all this time.
That's amazing. You know, when I saw your piece, you know, I the word that came to my mind was soaring. You just feel, because the way you've shaped the, you know, your piece, you almost physically feel, you can feel it, how your body would feel when you kind of like just glide into the air. And you know, the other thing, when you were explaining the way you get the blue, you know, the patina, you know, that effect.
Yes.
When you were talking, I was thinking about it, because when you're flying, the air would probably create ripples if you're flying by yourself without being in an aircraft, like just you like a bird. It wouldn't flow straight down, it would flow, you know, in a ripple. And I thought that was incredible, because you've actually replicated that on the sculpture, which was, as you were explaining, I was like, that's exactly how it would feel, and how exactly the body would respond if the air just kind of rippled all over you. And that's, you know, I got goosebumps listening to that. That's because you've literally recreated that feeling. And this is why I feel it's so important to speak to creators like you, because as you were speaking, I got an immediate, I felt an emotion. And I think that's what art does. It makes you feel things which otherwise, you know, if you're looking at an inanimate object, you don't know what's gone behind the whole thing. So I'm so, this is beautiful. It's excellent. You know, when I saw it, I thought it was beautiful. Now I know it's beyond. It's pretty marvelous.
Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. Such beautiful feedback. Thank you. Thank you.
So in your line of work, I know every material has it's good to you, it's bad to you. Like you said, there are days when the torch just doesn't do what you want it to do, and it doesn't mold the way you want it to mold. And I'm sure it's a big victory when you finally get, what you're looking for. What do you think is the most challenging part about your work? Is it coming up with the idea? Is it the execution? Is it saying goodbye to it once it's ready? What do you think is toughest for you?
Probably coming up with the idea, because every one of them is different. I don't follow, I never recreate or try to recreate the same piece twice. So it has to come from somewhere. I have to be in the right frame of mind. You can't force it. You have to be really open to possibility. I don't like feeling constricted by a particular theme or something. Like I always have to be very open-minded and in a good place to come up with an idea. And sometimes I will sort of start one before I'm finished the one I'm working on, just so that I don't have that like blank canvas effect, like I'll clean my desk and I'll think, oh no, what am I going to do now? So I think that is always, once I'm in it, I love it. I feel like, for me, it's like a lot of series of problem solving, because I don't design it, I don't draw it. I do drawings, but I don't stick to them. So I'll kind of do a rough drawing and then I'll kind of let the metal kind of lead me. So I kind of, when I'm in it, I'm fine, I'm in flow. But it's the kind of, what do I do now? Because it is kind of, some of it's quite surreal, some of it doesn't make sense, some of it's quite out there. So I have to be feeling it. It can't be a half, idea. I have to really be passionate about it and really feel excited by it, or it just won't work. I'll know that I'm not excited about it, and it's like the metal knows that I'm not excited about it, so it'll be.
It's almost like working with a living thing, even if it's metal, because it's like you're getting feedback from your material as you're working with it, and that's pretty amazing. Because like you're saying, when it's not going well, almost as if it's responding to what you're doing, and it's giving you a thumbs up, or it's just saying, no, it's not today.
Yeah, I genuinely do feel like that with it, I feel like I have some sort of connection with it, and actually I kind of have quite a special connection with some of it, because my mom years ago used to make copper plaques, and like with, designs on them for people. And anytime she had like made mistakes on the plaque or any kind of offcuts, she'd give me the metal. Mm-hmm. And it was beautiful copper, really, really nice copper. And she gave me loads, and I had stockpiles of them. And now she's passed away, and I still use those sheets of metal that sometimes in some of my work you'll see like indentations of things that were hammered out previous or scribed on previous, and I reuse them. And I love that connection to her even then with the work, because it's like I'm repurposing stuff that she's worked on, so it's even extra special for me. It's a nice kind of, I don't know, it just makes me feel a little bit more connected to her, and the metal is even more special to me. So yeah.
Your passion really comes through, Sinead, and I think that's what, there's life and you're living it, and then there's life that makes you feel really alive. I mean, I don't know any other way to describe it. Like, you can live your life and do the things you're supposed to do, wake up and, do your routine and go back to bed. I think that's, it's a satisfying life. You feel content, but there are things that really make you come alive. And like, I can see that when you're speaking, and, that's how I feel when I meet someone like you who's just followed their own path, and your passion rubs off on me, and I think that's what I want viewers to know of, people like you, because I keep saying this, over the pandemic I feel there were, life came to a stop, And we could have all just given up and just been like, oh, we're not going anywhere, we're just going to be, this is it. But it didn't, because the human instinct is to push through and hurt yourself and go through the angst and come out with something either good or bad. But the journey, like they always say, the journey is actually sometimes more special than what you end up with. And I can when I hear you, it's very, very evident that you're meant to be doing what you were born. I mean, you're doing what you were born to do, and I think that it's an incredible gift for you and for us, because we get to see your fabulous creations, and we cannot wait to see what you create next. Once again, we're so thrilled to have you with us at Art Expo New York. I want viewers to know that it takes place between March 30th and April 2nd this year, but the online art gallery will go live by March 1st. We will be posting this webcast on our YouTube and other social media channels soon, so you can view and purchase Sinead's work even if you cannot attend in person. For more updates, of course, follow us on Instagram at @let's_curate, and happy curating, everyone.